Kia ora, welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. A really busy week of rugby ahead as we try to line up what exactly is going to happen in the quarterfinals in Super Rugby. You know, who's going to get a home playoff? Who's going to sneak into the 8? Can the Drua get in there? You know, there's plenty to go, even though the Chiefs have wrapped up that top spot to figure out this weekend. Obviously, the top 8 system is working pretty damn nicely. So we'll get into a little bit of that. We've also got a couple of guests for you. Later on in the show, Grant Nisbet, the voice of rugby, joins us. Over 300 test matches to his name, so look forward to chatting with him about what's going on in the competition and also basically how it works in the commentary box. But before that, we've also got a special guest coming out of the Hurricanes, Cam Roigard, the halfback on the rise. Joining me, as ever, James Parsons. Fizzing.
Oh yeah, look, I pulled a few strings, you know, being president of the fan club. You know, I lent on the big fella and he's agreed to come on, which is awesome.
Cam, the fan club, is it stalker territory or is it fan club?
Nah, I suppose it's all positive stuff, so I'll let it slide for now. But yeah, it's great to be on here.
You don't have to call the cops just yet.
Nah, not quite. As long as it stays positive, we're all good.
Excellent. How are you feeling? You played 80 minutes on the weekend. That's a big shift for a halfback these days.
Yeah, first game playing 80 at this level, so I suppose, and I ended up going on the wing there, so it was a bit different. But yeah, no, it was good to be out there for the full 80.
That's your spot, isn't it?
Spent a bit of time there. I am interested though, like there's been a lot of chat around the laws, speeding up lineouts, scrums. You know, statistically, everything's measured. You know, sort of how much distance you cover, but then how much high speed distance you cover. Are you seeing a growth in that?
Just trying to speed up the scrums and all that sort of stuff. The ball and plays increased as well. So with that, the distance and the high intensity or high speed running has also, which has been, I suppose, pretty significant for us, like halfbacks or, well, I suppose everyone just getting around the field. But you get, I suppose, found out a little bit more if you're not as fit as you probably need to be. So, yeah, definitely early doors when you didn't quite have that rugby fitness, which you only get playing. It was definitely hard in those first couple of rounds to adjust to, yeah.
So are you pounding the pavement more in order to do those extra Ks during the game? Have you had to adjust your training?
We always try to simulate as close to a game as possible. So when we are training, we're trying to train at a high intensity with minimal breaks, whether it's setting, I suppose, game-like scenarios of scrums or lineouts quickly. So it's give the lungs a little tickle up to prime us for the games. So, yeah, definitely.
From my perception, when the going gets tough and people start tiring, that's almost when you inject yourself in these games. Is that, I mean, your fitness base, I know they do the Broncos test, but are you naturally someone that just can keep that threshold, you know, sort of redlining the whole time?
I suppose I've always naturally been fit, like you say, but I do definitely feel when there are, I suppose, some heavier or slower moving bodies, particularly just after half time, and there seems to be a bit more space around those rucks where I can tend to have a little snipe.
For those who don't know, the Bronco is a fitness test, an aerobic fitness test, right?
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's a horrible one.
Probably horrible for me, I don't know. Cam probably does it backwards faster than me.
Are you one of those sickos who loves a Bronco?
I don't think anyone loves a fitness test, but I'd still prefer it over a yo-yo, which,
oh yeah.
Yeah, that one sucks.
Yeah, what's that? That's the beep test that starts higher up the level. Is that what the yo-yo is?
Yeah, but then you walk this 5 metres to try and build up lactic acid, and it's just a little bit, it's a beep test evolution.
How are the guys feeling after that game on the weekend? It was, you know, I suppose a tough game with the playoffs not far away.
Yeah. I suppose it was pretty tough to take because we definitely, I suppose, put ourselves an opportunity to win that game, and we feel like we probably didn't nail some key moments after doing some good things. We didn't quite nail moments after that, which I suppose was probably the difference in them winning and us not. So I suppose the positive is that it's on us. We know that we can win those games, but going into the quarterfinal or in a couple of weeks, or there's even the Crusaders this week, which is going to be big, we know that we've got to be better to beat these teams heading into the finals. Yeah.
This is from last week, but based on your attacking stats on the weekend, you probably remain, you know, first in defenders beaten per game, first in clean breaks per game, first in turnovers won at the breakdown and loose balls in the game, first in conversion rate for tries once you enter the 22. So attacking wise, you're the best in the comp. What are the key areas, I suppose, you guys are seeing? Not what are the, it could be backed up by stats, it may not, but what are the key areas of the game that you guys are looking to nail, not only this week, but building into that playoff picture?
We're trying to put a big focus on just our individual accountability and skill sets, really, because like you say, we can get ourselves in good spots on the field, and then there's just one little moment of either an individual error or letting another team get over the ball and turn it over, which is, I suppose, shooting ourselves in the foot. So we've definitely got the talent and the game plan to score points and win games, but at the moment, I suppose, we're just not quite, pulling together a complete performance, which I suppose is needed at this level, this late in the competition to win these games. So, yeah.
Looking at how you sort of stood up at NPC was probably a lot of you taking the game by the scruff of the neck, whereas in Super Rugby, and sometimes I don't feel like your type 5 gets enough pats on the back, but for the most part of this season, man, you've had a platform to work off, and some of those guys are just working over. You look at Blackwell on the weekend, I think it was 18 tackles. Lomax is going from strength to strength. Xavier, Suffer, there's some real quality players in there that are surely making your life easier.
Yeah, 100%. And on both sides of the ball as well. Like I suppose like an NPC, I'd make at least 10, 15 tackles a game, whereas this at this level, I'm pretty fortunate. I'm only making 3 or 4, which I suppose is a credit to the work, like you say, that the type forwards and people in front of me are doing. They're making tackles, keeping stopping those boys from getting through the D line, and then on the other side of the ball, strong carriers giving us a platform, great set piece, dominating scrums. So it's definitely it's definitely different, but it's good because I can just, I suppose, tap into my role, but more just try now my stuff.
If your halfback's making more than 3 or 4 tackles, you're not doing your job. So because they've got such a massive role in being the eyes for the guys around the ruck, if you need to get around far side, so forth. So if they're having to make a tackle, that's gone. Then you're probably relying on a fullback who's 20 or 30 metres away to communicate that. So it is, although I know he'll absolutely love making tackles, I don't think any team wants their halfback making that many tackles.
Yeah, it's a tough go.
Well, it just loses such a key driver for your defence. And as we know, defence does win championships.
You've had a chance, I suppose, to have TJ Perenara and his experience in behind you. What has that been like for you, having him there, being able to lean on him? I presume that you grew up admiring him?
Well, when I was growing up, I suppose he was, he was All Black 9. He was playing awesome footy, and I sort of, as I was growing up, had a left foot. So it was easy to compare myself to him. And I started, I suppose, growing a bit taller, so I knew I wasn't going to be like an Aaron Smith in terms of like stature and stuff. So it was easy to look up to him and sort of try and mould my game off him a little bit. So then now being an opportunity for him to play alongside him like I did last year, and then this year him obviously with his Achilles being out, but him still being a mentor with all his experience, being able to have conversations with me where I can grow on a personal and on the field has been pretty huge for my development as a player, and I suppose trying to develop into a leader as well. So it's been pretty big.
Are there any particular lessons that you've really taken on board that he's provided you?
Rugby smarts, and where I suppose as nines we should be leading in what areas, and taking charge on the field, and then just developing connections with the players inside and outside me, and what that would look like, because obviously he's played with lots of different 10s and 9s and 8s, at all levels. So he's definitely got heaps of experience around that area, which he passes on to me, which I'm grateful for. Yeah.
Do you have, I suppose, any system in place, or are you learning from TJ or others with more experience? Like, there's a lot of hype around you at the moment, like it's and that's an enjoyable time, but how you sort of control, you don't go on those sort of peaks, and then like all players are going to dip in form and go into the troughs mentally. Is there a process around controlling that now while I suppose you're sitting on that height, so that when that form does dip, you have the ability to still stay sort of above the line?
Try to keep the game as simple as it is, or simple as possible, so then I can play with confidence and just play what's in front of me, which I suppose has been a bit of a challenge this year, which I'm a bit, I suppose, new to. But there's definitely people in place that I've been talking to. And there's likes of Colsey there trying to keep me humble, which is, I suppose, always good. So, yeah, no.
That's what those guys bring, and that sharpness for young guys about, just making sure they don't go on those peaks and troughs. It's actually because he's got a lot of love and care. Colsey, although it might sound like he's trying to, potentially bring people down, it's not that at all. It's just making sure that the young people can manage that pressure, because it is a new space. There's always that one guy in a team that, is sort of like the unsung hero and pretty much plays a 9 out of 10 every week. And for me, I get the sense that's Billy Proctor. I don't know, he seems to turn games on its head in those effort areas. He turns up time and time again where others won't. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, 100%. He's got a huge engine, and I suppose he probably got a bit of recognition last week, which he definitely deserved, because he was awesome, like, on those loose balls, defensively, offensively, sort of running the cutter, helping Aiden and Geordie and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely an unsung hero, but yeah, he's great to play with.
The other standout part of your team right now is that loose forward trio, whether it's Artie and Duplessis and Braden Yosei, or whether it's Devin Flanders. Like, the ball that you get, whether it's turnover ball or just quick ball, you're blessed.
Without even, probably them even trying, the ruck speed and stuff, it's easier for us because we're always getting dominant carries with the likes of them running hard and dominating whatever area they're in. And then, I suppose, not just them, but our set pieces strong, our scrum's real strong, which is great for, I suppose, game management, game driving, because, if we feel like we're on top of them, we can scrum for a penalty or whatever, work our way out the field, stuff like that. But I suppose defensively as well, like I sort of touched on before, I'm not having to make too many tackles at halfback, because they're stepping up in that area across the board as well. And that's, I think, just a credit to our defence. So I suppose I have a bit more energy, and I suppose I can not dominate, but I can try influence our attack a bit more, because I've got lots of saved up energy from those boys working hard.
All those individual players together make a really solid team, and over the years you guys have sort of been a bogey team for the Crusaders. You seem to have had a lot of success when other teams haven't, away from home and at home.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose where we are in the competition, we know that we've got our quarter-final locked in, so we sort of, I suppose, can throw everything at them. We don't know where we'll be sitting next week, whether we're 4th or 5th, but I suppose we're in a spot where we've sort of got nothing to lose in terms of trying to nail our attack in D, so that we're firing on all cylinders for the finals. But yeah, I think underdog's a good thing. I suppose it takes the pressure off a little bit from expectation and stuff, but we definitely, I suppose, respect them, as I hope they'd respect us in terms of being a great rival team to play against. And yeah, definitely think that we can have a crack at them.
Going to go there. Aspirations to be an All Black are clear. Where do you feel you need to lift to sort of get to that level?
I suppose not get comfortable, just playing, I suppose, good or all right, just trying to always be hungry to get better every day. So yeah, that's my main focus at the moment. Obviously, we have our focuses with the Canes and all that sort of stuff, but individually, just trying to, I suppose, not just keep trying to get better. Yeah, that's the main thing.
And have the selectors maybe given you specific points on specific areas, and what might they be?
Always having conversations with the Hurricanes coaches and stuff, and they're always giving me, I suppose, stuff that I can control to try develop in, whether that's my game driving, getting to good locations to kick, or whether it's my tackling or pass consistency, etc. But there's always something that I can try fine tune and dig a bit deeper into. I suppose make that a strength of mine. Yeah.
And the All Blacks coaches, they haven't given you a call and had a similar conversation?
Had a conversation, but I suppose it's mainly just around, I suppose, trying to be consistent and just trying to nail my role individually and not trying to get, I suppose, too carried away.
Like with the All Blacks 15, that's selected by the All Black coaches, so there is a wider group. Yeah. The perception could be, if the All Black coaches are talking to Cam, not saying he's not right in the mix, but there is a wide group now with that All Blacks 15 that they have touch points with, and I think that's good because, I think that depth of, player is crucial, but also they've got 2 teams to pick now. So they need to be playing the same style so that they're ready to go and need to be across the same thing. So it's an exciting time with that All Blacks 15, I reckon, for a lot of these players because it gives you a genuine idea where you sit.
It was my first taste of international footy. Never played schoolboys or 20s or anything like that. So from an individual point, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool milestone for myself. Yeah.
Where did you play? Was it Tottenham that game was? What was the...
Nah, we played Ireland and Dublin. Ireland A, that was what I played. But then the other game, was in Tottenham. But I didn't play that one. That was against the Loves.
Are you into your football? Because you guys got to go to a game as well, didn't you?
You always win. No, to be fair, I don't really follow it that much. But if the opportunity was there, I would have been there though. But I think it was just only a select few, so missed the cut on that. But no, it was all good. It was a pretty cool experience. Being in Europe, never been there before. So aside from the rugby stuff, it was pretty cool to have a look around, and it was pretty cool.
But your great love is motorsport. Is that right?
Yeah, I suppose. It was probably my first love before rugby, I suppose. It was, it's definitely sort of grew into that speedway. Family sport sort of grew into that with my old man racing. So, yeah. Yeah,
I think you've been a bit humble there. You're pretty good at it, weren't you?
I was right. Race, I don't want to get into too many details, but mini stocks, which is like the kids version, 12 to 16. And then race saloons. I managed to get 2NZ, which was like second in like the national champs when I was 18, I think. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Did it come to the point where you had to make a decision, or you just fell in love with rugby and that's where you went?
Yeah, well, I obviously had my aspirations to go further in my rugby, and once I managed to get my first opportunity down the Hurricanes as an injury cover, I sort of obviously thought that I wouldn't keep racing, because if I got injured or something, it would I'd probably get kicked out and never be called back in. So yeah, it was a pretty easy decision at the time.
What kind of cars are we talking about here? We're talking about on a dirt track, a saloon car. This isn't kind of touring cars.
Nah, so yeah, it's dirt oval racing, and the saloons are 355 V8 Chev. I suppose it's non-contact, but obviously still the risk of getting injured and stuff. If you have, I suppose, watched the Turbos play rugby, the track on the outside, that's the speedway in Palmy in the summer. So that's the sort of stuff we race around. But yeah, pretty cool sport. For
motorsport, the discipline and how meticulous you have to be just to not get knocked out must be huge.
Yeah, it's probably more so on the shed, I reckon. Like with Dad, he's very hardworking, and I suppose because I didn't touch on it, but it's not, you can't really make a full-time gig of it unless you do crack on to, I don't know, race V8 supercars or something along the lines of that. But so you're fixing it all yourself. You're on a budget, so you're trying to fix it all, do it all yourself. So you definitely, I suppose, the habits that you pick up, or I picked up from my dad, was definitely about work hard for what you get. And
so do you spend your weekends with your head under a bonnet?
Yeah, my brother still races, so when I can, I get an opportunity, I always go to watch him, but that's more up north in the Waikato. But I suppose it's always good to go back and help him out, and I suppose get to smell the petrol and whatnot. But yeah, it's cool.
Are you driving a Ford Ranger like most other rugby players on the planet, or do you drive something different?
No, I don't have a Ford Ranger, but I'm actually in the process of trying to get a new car, so I'm unsure what that is at the moment. But yeah, definitely a humble one at the moment.
Fair enough.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Car companies, there's an opportunity there.
Yes.
Sponsor the man. Get him early.
Jump on in, and then next time you come on, just have the shirt on. Chippers. He looks after his people pretty well. Well, thank you very much, Cam, for joining us. We appreciate your time, especially considering how big a game you got this weekend and in the weeks following.
No, sweet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the invite on. So, it's been good.
Great to catch up, mate. Go well this weekend.
So from when the young buck, obviously he didn't win against the Blues on the weekend, scored 8 tries this season, 7th on the list. He's on his way up. He's a great young player. At the other end of the spectrum, John Afoa, who he's going to play this weekend, comes out of nowhere and ends up playing for the Crusaders.
Yeah, of all places.
Yeah.
A bit like when DC came to the Blues, I think.
Yeah.
Look, he's a man that just loves the code, and he's going to go till the wheels fall off, in his words. It's sort of amazing when you can get guys of that experience back into a group, with so many injuries and experienced players. And he held his own. Admittedly around the park, it was a lot quicker for him from where he'd come sort of French Div 2. But, set piece wise, that's all they really needed him to, set piece and clean your rucks. He was pretty solid for 50 minutes, and I think he only arrived Thursday. So there's a lot to take in terms of systems, calls. Only someone of his experience could pull that off, because it could be disastrous for someone else. career defining almost, if you wanted the opportunity so desperately but didn't have the runs on the clock like him. So he was perfectly placed, and that's one thing Razor does so well, or maybe the Crusaders do so well. They always pick these, I suppose, Mike Delaney was one year, I can't think of any more off the top of my head, but they always get that older player that has such an influence on the squad and can step up and play.
It's funny to think about who lasts and who doesn't to that age, because you would imagine it wouldn't be the tight forwards, but so often it is.
Yeah, well, I think it's just because speed, John Afoa, when he first started, he was sort of like a sophomore, he was an athlete and could do his business. But as that speed diminishes, they get a little bit more licence to lose that, but then they're smart enough to sort of pick up in other areas, and that's why I think they can stand the test of time, because there is no game without solid set piece, Ross. And, experience counts for a lot in those dark places.
No doubt. And from one veteran to another, veteran of broadcasting, the legend himself, Grant Nisbet, has done over 300 tests. He's the voice of New Zealand rugby, and you might not necessarily know his face. You absolutely know his voice no matter where you watch rugby in the world. Nisbet, thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, boys. Nice to be with you.
You got to see John Afoa come on the field there on the weekend. Were you a little surprised? Suddenly there's this 40-year-old bloke running out there?
We got about a 2-hour notice that he was going to be in the squad, then he was going to start. But what a great story it is, isn't it? So now the oldest ever Super Rugby player. The second oldest, I heard a lot of people saying Brad Thorne. The second oldest actually was Ben May and then Brad Thorne. But great story, and he's going to be with the Crusaders for the remainder of the season.
I'll tell you what, the Blues alumni chat was going off. It was firing on all cylinders when they saw him run out in red and black, but all in good fun.
Yeah, and the story was quite amazing too, wasn't it? The story of the boots, had to give Dan Carter a call. And
surely with the dough he's been on, he can buy his own boots.
I think it was pretty short notice, wasn't it? I don't know the full story, but I believe this time last week he hadn't even landed in the country. And then to get the call, just a great story. Just a great story.
It's up there with the Brian Lahore story, sitting writing the letter to his wife and saying we're back and going to play a test match, those kind of things to his boat.
Yeah, that was a beauty, wasn't it? I think he left that note on a Friday in those days. I'm not sure there was a lot of training went on. It might have been a Thursday. I'm not sure. He probably said to her, and don't forget to put the rubbish out.
I get that most weeks. The same message, but not quite as important on a week-by-week basis. But speaking of, having a couple of hours notice, obviously when you prepare for your commentaries, you spend a week on it, don't you? You've got a lot to get through, a lot of numbers, a lot of bodies. So to have something thrown like that in the mix quite late, do you often get that? And does it affect your prep?
We seem to get a lot more changes in teams at the last minute these days. I'm not sure what the reasons are. Maybe teams are not releasing the fact that some blokes got injured on Thursday and they don't want to tell the opposition or something. And sometimes we don't find out until, half an hour before kickoff. And that's when Mr. Google comes into vogue, as he did with John Afoa the other day. I had to I had to Google. I had my rugby almanac with me, fortunately, so I could look at the number of test matches and that sort of thing. But yeah, often thrown into sort of last-minute preparation, because I normally start for a super game, and certainly a test match. I normally start a couple of days early once the teams are released. But sometimes these things crop up, and you only get about an hour to prep it. But we get by.
If you're looking at an individual player, what is it you go through, and what are the key sort of points you look for that you feel is, I suppose, worthwhile for the audience to hear?
It depends on the position they play, I suppose. If it's a winger, for instance, who scores a lot of tries, I like to know how many tries he scored and how many games he's played. If it's a loose forward, I'm keen to know sort of turnovers and tackles, and it kind of depends on the individual player and the position they are in. But I do like to be well prepared. I once had a chat with the great Bill McLaren and said to him, what sort of preparation do you do before a game? And he said, a lot more than I need to. He said, but it's always nice to have it there. He said, I probably would use 5% of what I write down, but it's always nice to have there as a backstop. And in the act of actually writing things down, you do remember stuff without even looking down at your notes. You do remember stuff that suddenly springs to mind. So there's a lot of different things. And you've got to also, quite often if a game is held up for a lengthy period of time, there might be quite a severe injury. You've got to kind of fill in the gaps. So it's better to have more than less.
You would have seen a lot of, I suppose, evolutions in the game of rugby. How have you kept, I suppose, present and across all of that over the years?
Yeah, the game has changed a lot, James. It certainly has. Forwards actually or locks used to actually jump in the line out at one point. Now, of course, they get lifted, and that's happened since 1996. So it's been around a fair while. But the continued changes of laws around the tackle ball and all that sort of thing, and bringing things right up to date. Things like goal line and dropouts and 50-22s and all this sort of thing were never thought of back in the day. So, look, the game is evolving. You sometimes wish there weren't as many laws as there are, because even for referees, I think it's just a confusing game at times. So you imagine what it's like for commentators.
And you've got to work in as well with your second voice and the third voice on the sideline. So it's not just the game in front of you, you're thinking about what's going on around you. How do you interact with the person who's the expert comments next to you? What's the rule of thumb about when you talk and when they talk?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because, you've got to act as a team and you've got to know your role. Now, my role is to be the describer, if you like, and to kind of anchor the broadcast, if you like. The guy normally sitting beside me is an ex-All Black or a very prominent rugby player, and I've been very lucky over the years to have guys like Murray Mexted, Grant Fox, John Drake, and Justin Marshall, all of who of course played for the All Blacks. So my role, of course, is to lead them into comments, because they're the guys that have been there, done that, if you like. And the role of the third guy on the sideline is quite a difficult one, because often you don't have eye contact with them. So you've got to have a kind of a feel for when they want to say something. I don't like throwing to them all the time, because that can get a little bit hard to listen to. So you do devise little triggers, I guess. And Ian Smith, of course, was the classic case. He was there for so long. Smithy kind of had the feeling that it was time for him to jump in. And what I do like to do, though, as the lead caller, is leave a lot of gaps so that the opportunity is there for the guy beside me or the guy down on the sideline, guy or gal on the sideline, to get in and say there a little bit.
So you've done a bit of this, number two. What's it like? How does it work? Is it hard to jump in and figure that out?
Oh, I think I've done mainly the experts, and I think it's a little bit easier there because you can have that eye contact and the body language, and you know sort of when you can jump in. But I must admit, when I've done sideline, it is a little bit confusing at times when to jump in. And like Nisbet said, you don't want to just keep throwing to people. So you do have to sort of find that balance. But I would say it's when you're in the box, that ability to read each other is relatively easy.
And coming from being a player and hearing the commentators and then being a player in the commentary booth, was that a difficult thing as far as, considering what it is that people want to hear in comparison to what it is you're thinking?
Well, of course, I had perceptions of what I wanted to hear when I was playing. So, I mean, that's what piqued my interest. Like, I'm a code head, and it's like when you've got a good commentary team, it gets you out of your seat, it adds to the spectacle. It is really critical to the product. And I just love talking code, so that's sort of why I sort of look to have an opportunity in it. And I've had one game, fortunately, with Nisbet in Wellington, and you just learn so much each time you do it. The more you do it, you can learn a hell of a lot. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned through 3 or 4 years that I've been doing it, is there's so much information you prep for that you actually never say, but you never know that day where there is going to be a long extended window. And man, if you've got to fill that, you need stuff. You can't just be rambling on.
You need a few one-liners.
Yeah, no, one-liners are just for the try.
Yeah, totally. And I suppose for you, Nisbet, the other part is, you got the game, you've got the people you're talking to, but then you've also got the people in your ear.
In any given time, of course, you're hooked into what they call a van, where the director sits and the producer sits, and so you have to be able to listen to that. And alternatively, while they're talking to you from time to time, they're also talking, obviously, to the cameraman. So there's all sorts of babble going on. Then, of course, you've got to be able to listen to the guy beside you, the guy on the sideline, the referee, the TMO when it's time to listen to him. So, there could be anything up to, I don't know, a dozen different voices going. But you do develop this ability over, I'd have to say, a fairly long period of time to be able to just blank those out unless you really need to hear what they're saying. And normally they'll address you, and so that you know that it's you that they're talking to. So it is a bit of a skill, and it doesn't come easily, and it particularly doesn't come easy to non-trained broadcasters. I imagine if you talk to James, he'd be one of those who would have quite happily just wound everything down and only heard the commentator. But it comes with time, and there's no quick fix.
While all that's going on, you've also got 30 blokes and a ref in front of you on the field. Obviously, you can't see the numbers always, you can't see the faces always. What do you judge who has the ball on a lot of the time when, it isn't necessarily clear to everyone?
Yeah, look, I'd love to go back to the good old days of counties when I used to do rugby commentaries at Pukekohe way back in the 70s when the great Bruce Robertson and one or two other players were involved. Counties always had numbers on the front as well as the back of their jerseys. So if they're coming towards you, you could still identify who the hell they were. Those days, unfortunately, are long gone. Look, a lot of the teams we do these days, I mean, you do the All Blacks, you do all the Super Rugby teams, you've seen these guys so often that it wouldn't matter whether you could see the number or not. You just know who they are, and that's not difficult. It's when you do games where you get teams that you have never seen before, that makes it pretty damn difficult. And so I like to watch them warming up, and often that doesn't give you a great lead because obviously they still don't wear their numbers when they're warming up, but they might have a lot more bandaging. If I'm looking at two locks, one might have a lot more bandaging than the other. Although, of course, that can get thrown into disarray when they go back to the dressing room and then put some bandages on. But colour of boots, sleeves rolled up or not, all sorts of different things. Wearing a headband or not, wearing a headgear or not, all sorts of different things. Hair colour, you grasp onto anything. And I write it on my notes. I quite often write green boots, orange boots, whatever. So some of the hardest commentaries I've ever done was the World Cups, where you might be doing games other than the All Blacks are involved, so you might have a game between, I don't know, let's say Italy and Namibia, and you've never seen these guys before, and if you have, you might have seen maybe Italy play a few games in the Six Nations. Namibia, I'm not sure where you'd see them play, but so there you are, you're confronted with this. In an ideal world, you get to training maybe and have a look at them there. But quite hard to get to training these days. International teams are very guarded about who's watching them train. So, I come back to the old story, you do your best.
Are there tricks of the trade? You know, if you didn't recognise the bloke, what's the thing that's coming out of your mouth if you're like, oh, who is this guy again? How do you work around it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can be guilty of omission, but there are little sort of phrases, nice pass or whatever. If you're really not sure who's made the pass or who's accepted the pass, and by the time you've said that, it's probably moved on to the next bloke and you do recognise them. So I probably, if you went back and looked at commentary, you'd probably say, well, you don't identify every single player that gets the ball. And there are two reasons for that. One, if it goes to the halfback, I mean, he gets the ball 100 times in a game. You don't really want to hear his name 100 times. The other one, of course, is that I haven't got a flaming clue who's got the ball.
We just had Cam Roigard on the show. Obviously, you live down in Wellington. You're fond of the Canes.
Yeah, he's played really well this year. I mean, he probably wouldn't have been as prominent had TJ Perenara been fit this year, but he's really taken his opportunities. I like the way he plays, and I think he's a good contrast to the halfbacks we have at the moment. We've got guys who are small and nuggety, and I'm thinking along the lines of obviously Aaron Smith and Brad Weber and Philly Christie. They are all guys of similar stature. What I like about Roigard is that he's a bit bigger, and he's a bit more like Perenara, if you like, who played 70-odd test matches. And he can act almost as a fourth loose forward. He's got that physical presence as well. So that's why I like the guy. I think he's a very good player.
Aaron's one. And I think, obviously Brad and Finn are going for that second spot. And then it's really a decision, do we want a point of difference against certain opposition? Do we want that more abrasive player? Okay, we're going to take that third halfback as someone that's more abrasive. Or do we actually want the person coming off the bench keeping our tempo and being exactly the same? So the coaches will know that the best. But I think you can't, even when you've got your three, you need to keep that fourth and fifth player World Cup year engaged, because they could be called upon at any stage.
Do you think, Nisbet, that the Hurricanes and Cam Roigard are in a position where they can go and beat the Crusaders this weekend and possibly jump into that top four?
They can be a bit inconsistent, the Hurricanes, but isn't that the story of since 1996? They're a bit hard to predict. They let themselves down badly at Eden Park on last Saturday night. They just didn't front in certain areas, and but they have that ability for sure. I suppose the question about this weekend for the Crusaders is who's fit and who's available to play.
They've been contenders each of these big derbies, but you get the sense they really want to take a scalp before going into the finals, and I think it's a prime opportunity, because the expectation, even last week, if you look at them statistically and the way they were travelling, great performance in the wet against the Chiefs, and then everyone was sort of picking them to beat the Blues, but the Blues have just sort of found their mojo the last couple of weeks in attack. So I think, it's a big opportunity for them and their desire to win this comp. I still think it's still open on their day. Like a number of these teams have the ability to go and win this comp.
Do you think the Hurricanes have got what it takes, considering what they did against the Blues, to knock over the Chiefs or the Crusaders away from home? Even the Brumbies, which they'll probably end up playing by the looks of it in the quarters.
Well, if you look at their phase play, their statistics, they're right up the pointy end of it. Where they're starting to struggle is set piece, and you just can't get your game going. So if they can shore up their line out and scrum, they are well positioned in the key statistic metrics. And I know stats only tell half the story, but and a number of their players are in form. So they're definitely still in the conversation.
But that line out was ropey though, wasn't it?
And it was the second week, so the wet, obviously, I think Devery went down early. Harmy Five had to play a lot of minutes. He's sort of been coming in and out of the squad against the Chiefs. He did a solid job, but it was hard conditions. And again, knowing Eden Park, those were challenging conditions. And I thought Riccatelli and Eklund did a great job. We're an area that the Blues have wanted to shore up as their set piece. So just shows how important those jerseys in 1 to 5 are, Ross.
The running joke, Nisbet, is that it's one up front. Most weeks.
Nisbet would agree.
I tell you what I have enjoyed this year is that teams are putting blokes up in the lineouts. I don't know. You can probably fill us in more on this, James. But I hate it when teams don't dispute possession in the lineouts. And I know the argument 5 metres out, if you put a bloke up, then he's not available to defend and all the rest of it. But the Crusaders just about always challenge the ball in the lineout. The Blues certainly challenged in the lineout. I've long been an advocate of, rugby is a game where you dispute possession at all times, with the exception of rolling balls, and won't start me on that. But lineouts, you get a great chance to dispute possession. Why not put blokes up? And I've enjoyed that about certainly the New Zealand teams this year. I think there's been far more of that, and they're getting rewarded for it too. Every
team I was always involved in, it was said you have to get up, and this is probably, why it probably shows an insight to how stressful coaching is when players just don't do it. Because it is such a key possession to disrupt. But even if you don't disrupt, just getting in the hooker's eye line is really off-putting. Even if you get half a lift, that may put them off enough that their throw's underthrown and you can tap one back. So to answer your question, they're definitely, I suppose, players in the teams I've been in, we've trained to put people up. It's just sometimes we've overcomplicated it ourselves and don't get up.
You don't get up because it was too hard to understand where the ball was going?
No, so they're quite tricky systems. There's normally a hinge that's a lifter that he could be a front lifter at the back or he could be a back lifter, and that's normally where the confusion lies. Or if there's two jumpers together in short lineouts, both wanting to get up rather than sort of being in sync. So I think teams, as you see, is normally a single lift at the front. They're not looking for that back lifter anymore, and then they're really roaming with that pod. And you'll see teams sort of move late and then they go back forward. The Crusaders are great at it. And that just, because normally the line-out caller at the back is looking for space. So he'll call a move that's into space. They'll give a picture of space and then they move so that space isn't there, just to rattle you a little bit.
And if all else fails, throw a bloke up at the front.
Always, that's why it's a single lift at the front now. I think Victor Vito sort of changed that. He was so explosive and he was such a good asset. Stephen Luatua was another one. He could just jump himself and just, a strong prop sort of put him over his shoulders. So those sorts of athletes are key to have at the front because it frees you up for less confusion at the back.
Further to your point, Nisbo, the line-out drive, it sounds like you're in the Wayne Smith of line-out drive critiquing. I think one thing we've seen that's gone really well this year has been the fact that at the top of the table you see Talea, Stevenson, Whainganuku. There are no hookers at the top of the try-scoring table this year. And that's a marked change from the last 2 or 3 years.
Whainganuku. He might have been the top try scorer last year at hooker, and that says probably more about the Brumbies than anything else. But yeah, look, I've always hated the rolling ball because it defeats so many of the things you're taught as a 5-year-old. First one is you're always taught to tackle the ball carrier. Well, you can't. And the ball carrier has 3 or 4 guys in front of him who are fundamentally offside, and there's absolutely no way, if it's done properly, that you can stop it. I've been advocating it for years, and we did try it 1 year, and as an experimental rule, we did try it in provincial rugby where you could sack the ball. And the reason apparently that we didn't continue with it was that there was a chance of injury. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I really not. So I guess while the laws are made in the Northern Hemisphere because it suits the way they play, then we haven't got much of a say, unfortunately.
As we're seeing, because there's a fixation on now stopping the mauls, there's a great opportunity to have those plays around the back of a line-out, which are entertaining. And, I suppose if you use Bryce Heem on the weekend, it looks pretty simple. That was a one-on-one tackle, but, poor Cam, he's got a lot to think about there. There's threats here and there's threats there and connecting with inside and out. And that seam becomes really vulnerable. I think the Reds, Vunivalu went through Makaleo and Renton there just because they didn't get set quick enough. So those are sort of areas where you're getting opportunities to make inroads. So it sort of works in roundabouts. Unfortunately, the driving more, no doubt, hookers will be top try. So never through my era, which is quite disappointing, but anyway.
Yeah, back in your day, they scored on the wing.
Oh, God. Back in my day, Bryn Hall just stole the ball before we even got started.
Just took it out the back and fed it to Bryn Gatland, and there was nothing else.
Yeah. Didn't trust us.
Fair enough. When you say that seam, you're talking about maybe the second channel out, are you?
Well, we call it channel 1.
Yeah.
You want to attack channel 1, so back of the line out, first defender.
Yeah.
That's back the 10 metres. That's channel 1. You're going down that sort of seam because normally there's a defender right at the back and they're disconnected. It's quite hard to connect. You almost have to go backwards to go forward at the back of the line out, and it's a skill. We've got to commend the refs as well. Like the new law of pushing those line outs through does mean you can take tempos because you don't have that ability. You would have seen a huddle as soon as there was a 22 previous years. You see that big huddle and that takes a minute. You're only going to drive it when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And you don't have that time to do that anymore. So line out callers are having to go on the fly, and quick ball's good ball. Quick ball, you can go at that seam and you can get away. It's just when things slow down that the more becomes, because you're kicking from a penalty, the defence is set. Do you know what I mean? So that's how the mindset goes, okay, when we're mauling this, let's suck them in and then let's have a crack. So that pressure at line-out time for hookers and line-out callers has meant there is less drive, especially, at the, I suppose, that 15 metres out.
Yeah.
That isn't from a penalty.
And that tempo is when you're just basically walking into the line out and going up.
Before they even set, like the Reds were great at it. That try from Vunivalu, that was from a penalty. And no, it wasn't. It was from kicked out on the full. And they just pressed so hard up there, went up early. And that's where, it wasn't that Makaleo and co aren't good tacklers. They just went ready because of the speed of the play.
Yeah. And Vunivalu.
As a freak.
He's so smooth. It's like he's not even trying this boat. It's just too easy when that guy gets going.
I'm interested as well. I mean, it's hard to compare eras, I understand all that, in players, but are there some memorable players for you?
Oh, yeah, lots. I mean, I've been lucky enough to see some of the great All Blacks. I'm often, if I'm asked to name my greatest ever All Black who I saw, it's always Christian Cullen. He was an absolute freak. But then, I don't like to play down the Carters and the McCaws, and it goes on and on and on. But naming an All Black, my favourite All Black 15, I'd be really struggling to leave blokes out. I mean, how do you compare Michael Jones with Richie McCaw? You probably have to pay Michael Jones on the blind side because you can't leave either of them out, really. So, yeah, I've been really lucky to have seen some of the really great All Blacks.
Who was your number one?
At 6?
No, overall. If Cully is most favourite.
As an All Black?
Yeah.
I got presented my jersey by Richie, my first jersey, so I'm fairly fond of him and the way I held him in high regard and for the era I came through.
Yeah.
To give you an example, like I stuffed up a line-out on debut and... and he was the jumper, and he came up to me at the next scrum and he was like, mate, I was a bit slow across the ground. And so all of a sudden, my debut, I'm like, beauty, that's not my fault. Skip's got me, packed down for the scrum. And after the game, he goes, oh, mate, I know what it's like when you've been that fit. Like, this is the level of leadership and thought he had. He was like, I wanted to take the pressure off you, but it was overthrown. So let's just have a look at that during the week and rectify. Wow. I just thought that's amazing. In a pressure situation test match, he has the ability to know that I needed that pressure relieved to get the best out of me for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
It's just things like that you've got to admire. He is quite a selfless player.
Yeah, little touches like that.
Yeah.
That's quite incredible. Well, before we let you go, Nisbet, we've got a few predictions to make for the week ahead. Starting off with the Blues versus the Highlanders. This is the game where if the Highlanders can knock off the Blues, they can secure themselves a spot in the top 8. Do you think, Nisbet, that is a chance? No.
Yeah, I can't see it. Not at Eden Park. Look, I really admire the Highlanders this year. They've been fighting against the odds. You talk about Crusaders injuries. The Highlanders have been equally as affected. And they don't have the depth, as we know, in their squad to cope as well as the Crusaders. So I really admire them. But I think it might be a bridge too far.
Especially the way the Blues are finding form. I think the Blues at home, again, will be too strong.
Now, the Rebels are also pushing for that spot. They're away against the Brumbies. Any chance?
Some weeks you look at them and you're like, geez, they're really good. And then they let themselves down. They were really good last week, the Rebels. The Brumbies, they had 60% ball, 60% territory. They had to make less tackles, so they should have theoretically had more energy, and they tackled at 80%. That's not Brumby's numbers. Brumby's numbers are 90 plus. So there's something just not quite right with them at the moment.
So they're a little bit vulnerable, perhaps, to a Rebels team which is okay. It's not a world-beating team, but I think they're a runner's chance, put it that way. But I'd be looking at the Brumbies in Canberra for sure.
Now, the Drua versus the Reds, Nisbo, that is a big game because you've got to get the feeling that if the Drua win that game, they're the team with the chance of popping into the 8.
2 New Zealand teams have shot up there this year and both come away with their tails between their legs, the Crusaders and the Hurricanes. So that's how difficult it is to win. And having said that, of course, Moana Pacifica very nearly toppled them last week. Look, I don't know what's happened to the Reds this year. On paper, they look pretty damn good. And there were long periods of time in that game against the Highlanders last Friday night when I thought they're not a bad side, the Reds, but they lost it in the last few minutes. But I think the Drua will be well and truly fired up for this one. And I think they'll probably win at home.
If the Drua play like last week, though, I think they probably focused on just trying to get the bonus point. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they play like that, they'll get ridden off the field. Like, they only kicked 7 times, played too much footy, which gave opportunity. So they need to get that territory-based game going if they want to win at home.
Now, we've covered the Hurricanes and the Crusaders to some degree, but quickly, Chipper, from you?
I don't know. I'll have to see the teams. I genuinely can't pick that one. I need to wait for the teams. I don't want to put people wrong, and then all of a sudden I go 7 from 7 again. 6 from 6, whatever it is.
Okay, well, while Chipper sits on the fence, Nisbo, what are you thinking?
I'll put my neck out and say the Hurricanes will play out of their skin and win this, largely based on the fact that the Crusaders pretty much cemented in second place, aren't they? And the fact that they've got so many injuries to key players. And I think the Hurricanes need some sort of performance heading into the playoffs. They're going to play in the playoffs, probably away from home. So I think they really need to put it on the line this week. And so I'm going to say, and they've done it in the past, and they've actually been a bit of a bogey team for the Crusaders over the years. So I'm going to say that the Hurricanes can do it again.
Waratahs versus Moana Pacifica.
I think Moana, unfortunately, are going to go through without a win, even though they probably should have got one last week.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been pumping Moana up in terms of their attack steps all season, but it's the defence, and I think the Tars will be too good at home.
Yeah, lastly, the Force versus the Chiefs. This is an interesting game again because of what's on the line. Nothing on the line for the Chiefs, plenty on the line for the Force. Nisbo, is this a Force side that can topple the Chiefs at home?
I can't see why the Chiefs, now that they've secured top position and can't be challenged there, why they would want to send their very best team in a game that they don't have to win. So, look, anything could happen here because the Force play well in Perth. There's no question about that. They've got some good results over there this season. And if the Chiefs send a less than strong team over, then I give the Force a real chance.
I think the Force are a chance, but I think that Reds game where they gave players opportunity will still be hurting. So I'm picking the Chiefs to win because there's bench spots to play for. They're a real title chance, and you want to be in that 23. And they'll want to rectify a few perceptions that the coaches will have after that Reds game.
So based off those predictions, I'm thinking that you guys are both seeing the Drua making their way into the top 8 and probably the Reds in 8th place behind them, with them in 7th?
Yeah, look, I've been trying to find a way to get the Highlanders in, but I'm struggling. I think the Highlanders actually have to win, don't they? I mean, and then that sort of casts any doubt that might linger. But I just don't know whether they can win.
Well, this is why the top 8 is in place, because this is a great conversation that wouldn't be happening if we only had a top 4 or a top 6. It just wouldn't be happening at all.
Well, yeah, especially if it was a top 6, there'd be nothing to talk about.
Yeah, plenty more teams in play in the last weekend. So thank you very much, Nisbo, for joining us on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod.
Enjoyed it, boys. All the best.
And thank you very much for joining us on Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Please catch us again next week. You can catch us on Sky, you can catch us on YouTube, you can catch us as an audio pod. Please get in touch, Aotearoa Rugby Pod at sky.co.nz, or leave a comment in the YouTube comments section and talk to us, and we'll try to answer any questions that you might have. So thank you very much. Mā te wā.